Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I'm Bill, the company's expert, and once again, as always, thank you for being here. Thank you and thank you to my subscribers and my channel members, super thanks donors, Patreons. You guys are awesome. We are here to learn about business. I love business. I love the idea. I think it's an incredible vehicle for a lot of people to be able to do what they want in life. And if you're interested in business, you've come to the right place because we're going to be talking about it. The title of this episode, episode 54 of Side Hustle Ideas, is Business 101. So we're going to talk about an overview of what business is and all the different pieces of it and how it all works from the point of view of a beginner and someone who's just getting introduced to this, is just wanting to stick their toe into the world of entrepreneurship and doing startups and being in business for yourself. We're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to briefly talk about the answer to a question I got asked last week. Is hustle culture a scam? Maybe you've heard that term, hustle culture. I don't like the term hustle. I tend to not use it. It has a lot of connotations with a bunch of slimy people that will try and sell you a bunch of snake oil, for want of a better term. So I don't like that term. But I get asked this. I have been asked this before several times, so we're going to tackle it today. The format of this live stream is I'm going to talk about these two topics. I'm going to talk about, is hustle culture a scam? And then we're going to talk about Business 101. And then I'm going to open it up for questions because after all, this is a Q&A. So if you are wondering something, if you are struggling with something, get in the chat. You should see the chat somewhere near my face if you're watching on your phone or on a computer of some kind. And I will do my best to answer your question and help you out. Let's get started. Okay, the question was, is hustle culture a scam? Now, just in case you don't know this, if you've never heard of the term hustle culture, I actually had to look it up. The definition that I found was, hustle culture is the idea of working long hours in the sole pursuit of wealth. Okay, so what that implies is that you don't have work-life balance, you don't have hobbies, you don't have a family, or if you do, you're neglecting them, right? And instead, you spend all your effort, all your time, all your energy on the acquisition of wealth, making money. Okay. And presumably this is within the context of being some kind of entrepreneur. Okay. So is it a scam? I don't know. I would say yes. I would certainly for myself. Listen, something I have had to deal with in my life is that certainly in the CEO job and, as an executive, the higher you go, the more all-consuming your career is, and the more demands it makes on your life, your family, your hobbies, anything outside of work. And it's not healthy. I speak from experience. It is not healthy at all. And so anyone who does this sort of voluntarily, I would say as a sustainable thing, it's unhealthy. Now, listen, when you're young, when you're in your 20s, certainly sometimes you got to do things to put your career in place for the rest of your life. For example, going to school, going to college or university or whatever you're doing. If you're going to med school, for example, I mean, you're not going to have a good work-life balance when you're in med school. These things are well known. So I can get on board with the idea that, for a limited time, when you're young, yes, what they would term as hustle culture might make sense if there's a plan in place and if there's a goal and it's not meant to be some kind of permanent arrangement. That's what I have to say. I know there's a lot of quote unquote gurus talking about this stuff, influencers. I mean, whatever. Maybe if I was in my 20s, I'd understand it more, but I don't. I've always been an aficionado of recommending that people go out and get educated from legitimate sources, not from self-professed gurus. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of those people, my impression of them is they it's all about motivation. It's all about sort of lifestyle advice and motivation. And that might be fine, but that's not really the thing that should be your guiding light. It should be more established, more verified sources of information. Okay? Like if you're wanting to learn how to succeed in business, learn the stuff that they teach in business school, right? You don't really need to seek that out. You know what I mean? And and that's what I have to say about that. People that share supposed anecdotal success stories, fine. You could take it as a source of inspiration, but don't take it as fact. You know what I mean? In order to learn what to do, you need to do two things. You need to gain knowledge, which is learning, which you learn from books. And then you need to gain experience, where you go out and you try things and you learn how it actually works in the real world, the practicalities of doing the thing. You need a combination of both of those to succeed, whatever it is you're trying to do. So gain the knowledge from a legitimate, reputable source, and then go out and do things yourself to gain the hard experience. Then no one can tell you what's what, because you've been there. You've seen it with your own eyes. You've touched it with your own hands. You've been in the situations they're describing, and okay? So that would be my advice to everyone. If you want to really learn business or how to succeed in business, or probably a lot of other things, you need those two things, knowledge and experience. So if you're young and you're wanting to learn how to succeed, I would suggest you go out and try and get both of those things. And don't put one or both of them off. Try to get both now. Try to get the learning, which you can. Doesn't matter if you have, a day job or anything like that. Learn in your spare time, right? And if you are in school or you're doing something, there's no reason why you can't get the experience also by trying things. You can limit it, manage your risk. Don't spend large amounts of money doing any of this, and you sort of normalize this. And after a while, you will have developed a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and you'll become a pro. Okay, sooner or later, one day you'll turn around and realize that you know what you're doing. Okay, so you know what I mean? That would be my advice. So people that advise you not to do these things, or they advertise all kinds of supposed shortcuts to this process, I'm very skeptical of. The other thing is that I don't like the term hustle, like I said, and success in business is more than just, being these sort of alpha types that sell. Usually when I see that, to me personally, that's kind of a red flag. If you need to adopt that attitude and be selling all the time like that, like these really tough sales kind of situations, usually that's a signal that there's a lack of substance underneath, that there's a lack of value in what it is that you're selling that necessitates you to push it that hard, and have it be this all-consuming thing. You know what I'm saying? If you've done certain aspects of your business right, like for example, you're offering something that's of legitimate value to the right people, you shouldn't have to adopt really, really tough sales tactics, in the vast majority of situations. So that's what I would say. And the term grind, that can mean pretty much what you want it to mean. It means working hard. It means being repetitive. Obviously, a little bit of that is fine, but when you take that to its extreme, that shouldn't be necessary. If you feel that that's necessary, something's wrong. So that's what I'd have to say about it. Yeah, so that's my answer. As unstructured and as unrehearsed as that is, there you go. I was just asked that. Is hustle culture a scam? So there you go. That's my answer to that. Okay. Let's move on to the main topic of this live stream, which I see there's 22 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. You're probably here to learn Business 101. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so if you're if you're wanting to get into entrepreneurship, you're interested in the idea of exploring perhaps a side hustle, perhaps you have a day job, but for whatever reason, you want to do something on the side. It could be more money. It could be, just the passion to get into business. It could be the desire to control your own destiny and not have to work for yourself. That's an absolutely legitimate and noble goal to have, and I applaud you if that's your motivation for this. Let's talk about business. Now, a lot of people that have jobs, sometimes they don't learn this, what I'm about to say, till they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Some of them never learn. Okay? For example, your employer, let's say you have a day job and you work for an employer. What is the perspective of the employer? Why are they giving you a job? What are their goals? Well, and I've heard some employees say this, so I'm going to react to it. Their goal is not to give you a job. Okay, that's not the whole point of business or even big business. Their only goal is to make money. Okay, that's the only goal of a business. That's what a business is. It's an entity set up, and its only goal, its one goal, is to make money. It doesn't care about employing people. It doesn't care about improving society. It doesn't care about progress or moving things forward. All it cares about is making money. Okay, that's what a business is. And if you study business, business is the scientific study or pseudo-scientific study sometimes of how to make money. Okay? Now, if a business could make the same amount of money without any employees, it would do so. But it finds that if it's employing people, it finds that it can make more money by employing people. So that's all the employees are to the business. Okay? Now, why is this? Like, it's all very easy for me to say this is its goal, but where does that come from? Is this because someone similar to me has decreed that the business should only have this goal? No, it's because of the way the business is set up. Okay, imagine this: you have some money, and you can take your money and you can put it in the bank. Okay. And one would expect that if you put some money into the bank, let's say $1,000, you come back sometime later, say a year later, 2 years later, and you expect to find in your bank account more than $1,000, right? That's the whole point of putting your money into the bank. If you found less than $1,000, what would be the incentive for you to take your money and put it into a bank, right? You might as well keep it under your mattress, right? So the whole point of putting your money in the bank is because eventually it will grow, right? That's the incentive for you to do this, okay? So we all know that that's generally what happens. You take your money, you put it in your bank, your money magically grows somehow. We don't know how, but it just does, right? Okay? You're not micromanaging your money. You don't see what the bank is doing with it behind closed doors. All you know is that you come back later and you have more money than what you put in. Okay. Now let's look at what a business is. Okay. Business is kind of like the same thing. Okay. Instead of taking your money, your $1,000, instead of putting it into a bank, what you could do is you could take that money and you could put it into a business. So you buy part of a business. Okay. Let's say the business is worth $100,000. And you contribute $1,000 to the business. So you own, in a sense, 1% of that business, right? Well, it's the same idea as a bank. You don't want to have to be there every day watching your money. You just put your money in and you come back a while later, let's say a year later, and you're going to expect to find more money than you put in, right? If you put in $1,000, you're going to expect there to be more than $1,000, maybe even $2,000, right? At the end of the day. Okay. So this is how the business is set up. It is owned by people who are like investors. They have put their money into the business, and what they really care about is that their money has, first of all, not been lost, but secondly, has grown. That's their incentive for doing this. Okay. So the people who have put their money into that business, they own that business. Now, if you own a business, you can hire or not hire whoever you want, right? So what they do is they hire the person who's going to most likely grow the business and make them more money. Because if the business makes money, then the value of the business grows and the money that all the investors put in grows also. And that's the whole point of this. So the business is a thing that's set up to make money. Okay, that's what it does. That's its one and only goal. Now, I'm not a big political expert, but my understanding is that at least, I'm in Canada, and the general feeling here is typically that, business is designed to make money. It cares about making money, whereas government cares about taking care of citizens, right? So the two kind of balance out. You have one pushing one direction, one pushing the other direction, and between the two of them, you get some kind of happy medium where you take care of people, but you also have progress and growth and people making money. But business is the component that just all it cares about is making money. Okay, so hopefully after completely beating this idea to death, everybody understands. Okay, that's the whole point of it. And the idea is that the owners, the people that have put their money into the business, that control it and decide if they want to shut it down or they want to pull their money out, they're the ones that call the shots, and they can decide who they want to hire. Now, when you hire an employee, how do employees get paid? They have an employment contract and you agree, and usually the company says, we're going to pay you this amount, and the amount that employee gets paid has nothing to do with whether the business is profitable or not, right? The employee agrees to come to work and do what the boss tells them, and in exchange, the company agrees to pay them a certain amount of money, whether it's by by hour, like a wage, or it's by annual pay, like salary. The employee doesn't really get paid based on how profitable the business is. The business could be losing money hand over fist, but that has nothing to do with the employee. They might not even be aware of that. All they know is that they put in their hours and they get paid by the hour, the agreed upon rate, right? So the employee is an expense from the perspective of the business, okay? The other thing is that the employee is not really taking any risk in the sense that they show up for work, they don't care whether business is good or bad, they get paid the same regardless. That's the idea, okay? Now, obviously, if business is bad for a very long time and it's really bad, then the company won't be able to afford to pay the employees, right? Eventually. But all things being equal, the employee doesn't really care if the company is making that much money because they get their hourly pay regardless, right? Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a difference in behavior between an employee and an owner. Now, an owner, in order for them to make money, right, they have to pay their bills first. So money comes in, they pay their expenses, they pay all their bills, and then whatever is left over, they get to keep, right? So if a lot of money is left over, they get to keep a lot of money. If only a little bit of money is left over, or practically nothing is left over, that's what they get to keep, which is bad in that case, right? So in this sense, the owner is taking risk, right? If they make good decisions, they make a lot of money, they get to take it all home, and they're happy. If they make bad decisions, the company doesn't make money, the owner doesn't make really any money, and they have to live with that, right? They cry. So their compensation is variable, whereas an employee's compensation is more or less fixed. Yes, you might have bonuses and special arrangements with employees, but generally, especially lower level employees, it's pretty much fixed. If they work a certain amount of hours, the company is obligated to pay them a certain amount of money. There's no variance there. Okay, so for this reason, you get a difference of behavior between the owners and the employees. The owners are subject to risk, whereas the employees generally aren't, at least in theory. That's the idea. Okay. So that's kind of how companies are set up. So the business itself is more important in a sense than any one person in it. If the people running it, the managers, like the CEO or something, does a bad job, the investors fire them and appoint someone else to run that company. If the employee decides to leave, or their performance is not very good or something, the CEO can terminate them, or the employee can leave, right? The business keeps on keeping on. It's very simple. So that's why businesses, their only real goal is to make money. It's because they're owned by investors, and investors are acting like you do when you go to the bank. You put your money in, you don't want to have to deal with it. You just want to come back and see that there's more of it. Okay, that's the idea. So that's what drives this incentive structure where businesses behave the way they do. Okay, right? So that's what it is. It doesn't exist to give people jobs. It doesn't exist to improve society. I'm not saying those are bad. I'm just saying that that's how certainly private businesses are set up, or even public companies are set up. It's this incentive structure. Okay, so that's what it is, right? Let's talk about different types of business. If you wanted to set up a business, there are different types of businesses you can set up legally in different countries. Generally, there's two types that exist universally. One is a proprietorship and one is a corporation. A proprietorship is just if you want to set up, say, a side hustle, and essentially, legally, the side hustle is really part of your personal finances. So if you make money, selling something on the side, you make little arts and crafts or whatever, you sell it, you maybe bring in, say, $500 a month. Usually what people do is they set that up as a proprietorship. That's where you tell the government, I'm in business, I own this business, but the business is essentially me, right? So any money that the business makes is really like me making money, right? And then that ties in with how you pay your taxes and all this kind of stuff, right? That's called a proprietorship. Very, very simple to do, very easy to do. Okay, it has a lot of advantages, but it's not really suitable if the business grows and gets really big. Okay, the other type of business entity you can set up is a corporation. And a corporation is an entirely separate entity. It exists completely separate from you. Okay, so if you set up a side hustle and you make $500 a month doing arts and crafts, right? But you decide to set it up as a corporation, right? Let's give our little company here a name. What should we give it? I could say Bill's Arts and Crafts, but that's boring as hell. What should we call it? How about Sassafras Inc.? There we go. Something delightfully piquant like that piques your interest. So let's say you set up a corporation called Sassafras Inc., and it sells little arts and crafts, right? And it brings in $500 a month. But you set it up as a corporation. Well, Sassafras Inc. is its own legal entity. That means that it exists separate from you. So it means that somebody can buy it from you. It means that it can employ people. It can have its own group of owners. All of them could not be you, right? Separate from you. And it can have its own employees. All of them, are different from you. And it does its own thing. And if someone else buys it, it's out of your control. So it's an entirely separate legal entity. It files its own tax return, and so on, right? That's what a corporation is. It's also important for like legal stuff. So for example, if you set it up as a proprietorship, which really means it's a part of your personal finances, that means if someone hypothetically sued your company, they would be suing you, right? Whereas if you set it up as a corporation, Sassafras Inc. is its own corporation, then someone who has a beef with something the company did, they would sue the company, and that's separate from you. The company would have to defend itself, and people would be entitled to take damages from the company and all this kind of stuff, right? So that's the difference between a corporation, which is its own legal thing, and a proprietorship, which is essentially you. It's tacked on to you. Okay. So anyway, so we talked about like what a business is at its heart, the concept. We talked about the different kind of types of business. And in different countries around the world, they have different variations on this. You can do things that are in between a proprietorship and a corporation. Like I know in the United States, they have like LLCs and, there's all other kind of variants. You don't get those in other countries. And then other countries have their own unique sort of things. So it varies, but those are basically the two sort of extremes. Okay. Let's talk about what you do in a business. There are different things within a business. You may have heard of them. Things like marketing, accounting, HR, right? Probably the easiest thing to know is operations. So if you set up a company that makes arts and crafts, okay, the whole activity of making arts and crafts, like, I don't know what arts and crafts involves. I always figured it was stuff that involves like styrofoam and, wood, like balsa wood and sprinkles and paste and, varnish and this kind of thing. So the entire process that involves anything to do with sprinkles, varnish, styrofoam, balsa wood, and glue, that's called operations, right? If you're in the business of making arts and crafts, the actual building of arts and crafts is operations. So if you work in the operations department, you would be a carpenter, or you would be a craftsman or an artisan or something like that, right? That's what operations means. I got a couple of questions here. Geraldine Smythe, that's how you say that, right? Smythe says, how would a company defend itself? Yeah, well, it would hire a lawyer. And it means that someone could file a suit against it, right? You could sue the company. You could you could initiate litigation against not you, but the corporation, right? So in order that now, if the company does nothing, a judge would say, okay, well, the person bringing the complaint wins, and they are awarded these damages from the company legally, and the company would have to pay them, right? Or the company could hire its own lawyer or employ its own lawyer and challenge them in court, right? So that's how it would defend itself, right? It would, I'm not a legal expert, but a lot of bigger organizations, they have their own in-house lawyers. They'll have a general counsel, they'll have their own legal team, and they're in charge of, anyone who tries to sue the company, which is litigation that's filed in a court. Then the company has to challenge those and defend itself in court, or with legal action. And basically, legal action is just lawyers sending letters to each other, right? Which can ultimately end up in court, right? But that's how it would defend itself. Sarah is here. This is a live stream where we talk about entrepreneurship, basically, in business. I do another live stream later today where we talk about getting a job, resumes, all that kind of stuff. So stick around for that if that's what you're into. Okay, so anyway, we're starting to talk about the different areas of business. We first talk about operations, right? So operations it's a department where you create the product that you sell. Now, you may also, you may be selling a product, or you may be selling services, or some combination of the two. Pretty much everything that gets sold by a company is either a product or a service or somewhere in between. Okay? So whether you are, if you're a product company and you manufacture something, the manufacturing operations are called the operations department. If you are providing services, it's a service provision company. The people who provide the services, like say technicians or consultants or whatever it is, they work in the operations department. Okay, that's what that means. So operations is creating the thing that you sell. The next most important thing in the business is to do with selling. And that's called marketing. People sometimes refer to sales as if it's separate from marketing. It really isn't. It's all part of the same topic. Marketing is the study of customers. So a lot of people who do side hustles, for example, they already know how to create something of value. So whether they are manufacturing something that they're going to sell, maybe you're making arts and crafts in your garage. You already know how to create the arts and crafts. The challenge might be trying to sell your arts and crafts, right, to people you don't know. If you provide services, let's say you're a technician or a consultant or someone who can provide services that other people would pay for, you already know how to do this and you're already set up to do this. The big challenge for you now would probably be selling your services, right, to people you don't know. Well, that is the marketing department. Marketing, what they do is, at the end of their process, they engage in selling, essentially, okay? But that's at the end of a long process. The beginning of the process is trying to figure out who would we sell to? Who are those people? Give me some information on them. Where are they? How do I best reach those people to convince them to buy my thing? What would I have to say to them, or what would I have to communicate to them in some way to convince them to buy my thing, right? And how would I get that message to them, right? So all of that's marketing. Okay, so marketing, it starts with like a research project, trying to find out who would be your customers, people who could buy your thing, might be interested, and trying to find out everything you can about them. Where are they? How many of them are there? What's the best way to reach them? What should we say to them, etc. Right? So different businesses, they sell in different ways. Like, for example, if you wanted to buy groceries, what's the best way to convince you to buy groceries from a certain place? It would probably be, they would have to be conveniently located near you, and then it would be a thing where they can walk in and touch and see exactly, the products, right? They don't want to look at a picture online. They want to see the actual product in person. If you're going to buy like a head of lettuce or something like that, right? You probably want to see the lettuce. You want to squeeze the lettuce, right? Things like this, right? That's obviously not how you sell legal advice, right? You don't have to have the lawyer appear in person. Maybe just word of mouth would be enough to convince you to hire that lawyer instead of a different lawyer. Or maybe you'd want to meet them and have a brief conversation with them, something like that, right? So depending on what business you're in, how you go about selling, how you go about discovering who your customers could be is completely different, right? So anything to do with customers, that's marketing. Marketing deals with customers, right? Just like things like HR deal with employees. Anything to do with employees, that's HR. Anything to do with customers, that's marketing. Okay, at least potential customers. Once someone's already bought your stuff, then that might be customer service, but that's something different. That's after they bought it. Okay, so number one most important part of business is operations, to create the thing of value that somebody would want. And then the second most important area is marketing. That's where you figure out, like, who could I sell this to and how, and does it make sense? Okay, sales is like the practical implementation of marketing at the end, right? Where you actually take all that knowledge and you apply it and you make sales. Okay. The third area is it's finance, but that's probably not the the third most popular thing you've heard about? The third most popular thing you've heard about is probably accounting, right? Accounting and finance. I did a video a long time ago. It's wildly unpopular. It was called The Difference Between Finance and Accounting, right? Because I'm sure you've probably heard both those terms before. It's very simple. Accounting is money in the past. Finance is money in the future. Okay? So an accountant is someone who works in accounting. And if you're a certified accountant, that means that you deal with money in the past. So usually what accountants do is that they do some kind of forensic audit, like some kind of forensic investigation. Where did the money go? How much money came in? Where did it go? What did we do with it? Right? We've got to account for all the money that came through the door. Some went here, some went there, and we have proof of everything, right? And that's what accounting is. So it's like dealing with money that's already happened. It's already flowed through the company. We just want to know what happened. That's accounting. Or it can deal with money in the present, like what is going on right now. How much money do we have in our bank account? Is that money slated for something? Why is it there? Why is it being put aside? What's it intended for? Things like that, right? Money in the past and money in the present, technically. But when you get into questions about money in the future, that's a whole different area. That's finance. Money in the future is like saying, okay, what should we do? Should we buy this or should we buy that? Should we buy this now or should we save our money now and perhaps buy it or something else later? Which one makes the most sense for us? Right? Plan A is to buy this machine that we need now. And plan B is to maybe buy a used version of it in 6 months. So plan A and plan B. Now, if we do plan A, what's our best guess on where that's going to land us? And if we do plan B, what's our best guess, our prediction of where that's going to land us, right? So will we make more money by doing plan A or will we make more money by doing plan B, right? So which one should we do? That's finance. Finance deals with predictions about the future. It deals with uncertainties. It deals with statistics like probabilities, risk. If we do this, what are the odds that it's going to work out? If we do that, what are the odds that's going to work out, right? And if it does work out, what do we estimate the payoff to be? Is it going to be a little bit of money we get or a lot, right? So that's finance. It's a whole different thing from accounting. You're not doing like a forensic examination of what went on. You're trying to look into a crystal ball and, sort of predict the future. Okay, so two completely different areas. Right now, so what I'm saying is that the third most important area of business is finance. Okay, what should we do from a financial perspective? Could we make more money doing this or doing that? Right? How do we know if this is risky? If is option A is riskier or option B is safer? Right? So, and how do we do this with numbers? Let's get some numbers here. Right? Things like that. How much is something worth? If I were to sell it, what would it be worth? What are the odds it would be worth this much or that much? That's all finance. Finance is the third most important area of business. In order to make money, you need to understand money. You need to understand how money works and, how much things are worth and the concept of risk. There's a lot of people out there that someone asked about gurus at the beginning of this live stream. We're answering the question, is hustle culture a scam? And something I've seen, or I get the impression of, is that there's a lot of people out there, younger people, a little bit innocent, that don't understand things like finance. And they're being, in my opinion, led astray sometimes by some influencers that convince them, oh yeah, do this, you can't lose, do this. It's, the way to get rich quick. And it's like, what they're recommending is something very, very risky. And if you understood finance, you'd be able to pick that entire thing apart and understand exactly what the flaws in the thinking are. You know? So finance helps you understanding the concept of risk versus return or risk-adjusted return. This stuff really helps. So it's the third most important area of business. Some people think accounting is. I'm not putting down accounting. It certainly is very, very important, but it's not in the top three. Finance is more important, because if you're in charge of something, you have to make decisions, and decisions are about what is likely going to happen in the future, not what already happened. That's not a decision, right? Decisions are about, what is likely to happen, right? It's about the future. So finance is more important from the perspective of anyone who's in charge, who is the decision maker. Okay, so we talked about operations, we talked about marketing, we talked about finance. Those are the big three. Now, there's a lot of other areas of business, but they all play secondary roles, okay? So examples are like HR, right? Dealing with employees. That's sort of like an administration function in all intent and purposes. If you get big enough that you start employing other people, it just makes sure that you're doing it legally and you're doing it, in a way that you're following best practices and everything goes smoothly and everyone is happy and all this kind of stuff, in theory. IT is another one. IT, unless you're in the tech sector and you're working with computers, I'm talking about IT as a business function. So it's a tool you use to help you run your business, right? IT. Organizational theory, which is, how to work with people, essentially, how people behave. That includes things like leadership, like how do I get my employees to do what I say or to want to do what I say, right? How do I get them to all pull in the same direction? And it's in the direction that I want people to be doing if I'm in charge, right? That's that's leadership, which is a part of organizational theory. So there's many other things. I mean, there's strategy, there's economics, there's project management, there's quality. As you get bigger and bigger, there's all these other little things. And basically, they're just there to support the big three functions, which are operations, marketing, and finance. Those are the ones that, your success depends upon, right? So when you learn business, you learn a little bit of all of these areas, right? As you can see it's been up on the screen for a long time. I have a course in business, the MBA course, which I highly recommend if you want to learn business. But you learn all the different areas, and you can specialize when you take an MBA from university or whatever. You can specialize in one area. You could say, I specialize in this area. I'm going to get an MBA specializing in marketing or specializing in operations management. Excuse me. And that will help. Okay? But basically, that's Business 101. That's what business is. We talked about a couple of different types of businesses, proprietorships and corporations. We talked about the big three areas of business: operations, marketing, and finance. And then we mentioned a few of the others, like IT and HR and stuff like that. But that's an overview of business. And what business is taking something and making money with it. So if you have a hobby or you have a passion, let's say you have knowledge, you understand how to race go-karts, right? That's your hobby. And you like your hobby so much that you would love to be able to turn it into your job, right? So either you become some kind of professional go-kart racer, or you become a consultant that helps other people get established in the world of racing go-karts for fun. You help them get all set up, everything they need. You show them the ropes and give them training and all this kind of stuff. And that's what you use to make money, because people will pay for those kind of services if you can connect with the people that have those needs, right? Right. So business will be able to teach you how to monetize something that you want to do. That's the whole point of it. Okay, that's why I think business is a great thing. For some people that have some ability, you can learn business and you can start turning your knowledge or your abilities in an area into a source of income, if that's what you're interested in doing. Some people want to keep their hobby. They don't want to turn it into a job, right? That's totally fine. But other people, they're more interested in saying, okay, I know a lot about this area and I love working in this area. Wouldn't it be great if I could make money doing it, right? So that's where you can apply knowledge of business to turn that into perhaps first a side hustle. And then if it's very successful and you're still interested, you can turn that into a full-blown career where you're your own boss and there's no caps on what your income can be. It's just simply limited by your decision-making abilities. And the more you know, the better decisions you'll make and the more potential you'll have. So there you go. So that's Business 101 for me. So I'm going to open it up to questions. So if you guys are here, there's 16 people here. If you are struggling with something, if you're wondering anything, get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering, and I will try and help you. Yeah, I was in the UK recently, and I noticed I was listening to the radio there, and I noticed how all these talk shows and things, they always start with some it's almost like somebody decreed you have to start with a statistic, some remote statistic that nobody is aware of because it's so remote, and you've got to say it in an extremely impactful way. And that's like their hook, right? I listened to 4 radio shows in a row that did this. They start the show with do you realize that your feet produce over 4 liters of sweat per year? Something like this. It's what? And then they launch into something. I was thinking of adopting that, and then I realized that's just too stupid. So there you go. There's some small talk for you. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. We'll see if there's any questions. And if there are, I'll be happy to help. If there aren't, I will wind this down. But we got some great participation a couple of weeks ago, certainly. There was a lot of people. Let me know also what topics you guys would like me to cover, because, I could talk about many different things. I prefer to talk about things that people are actually interested in. There's a demand for. So let me know what that would be. You guys like my hair today? That's business hair right there. Yeah. So, yeah. And while we're waiting, I'll just say that this course here that you guys have been staring at for a while, if you've been watching the video feed, that is basically an entire MBA program, the same, pretty much almost identical to what you would get in university. If you took a 2-year university degree, you went to a brick and mortar university and you took their MBA program, okay? You would take approximately 12 courses, and they would be covering things like we talked about in this episode, where you take a course on marketing, a course on finance, a course on accounting, a course on operations, a course on HR, and so on. And the idea is that those courses, they all have textbooks, and the textbooks often are not written by the instructor that you have. They're written by some of the top professors in the world in the respective areas, right? So for example, the marketing textbook that I have in this course here is written by someone who their marketing textbook has been used in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of universities all around the world. It's regarded as one of the, sort of ultimate marketing textbooks written by one of the foremost authorities in the world on marketing. And so you read the book in the class, you do assignments out of it and problems out of it, and then you can go to the lectures, and then the instructor essentially reads the book to you, maybe explains it a little bit, and you can talk to the instructor about it. So what I've done is I've packaged all of that, okay? So what you get in my course is essentially you get a reading list, and you can order these books off Amazon. You can order those textbooks, like I mentioned, the marketing textbook, off Amazon. You can get the latest edition brand new for more money, or you can get a used copy or slightly used copy of the same textbook, but maybe 1 or 2 editions old for like literally $5, right? So you get to choose which of those you would prefer, and then you order it, you read it, and I provide videos that guide you through it. So the material you're getting is not created by me. It's used. It's the same material that you learn in these courses in, top tier universities like Harvard Business School. They're using these same books, right? Now, you obviously can't go and ask the professor a question, but I'm offering it for like what, 2%, 1 or 2% of the fee of the cost of that. So it's a great way to introduce people to business. You can take this and just skim the entire program, or you could take it and go really in depth and get the same amount out of it that you would get out of an MBA. So if that's of any interest to you, check out that course. There's a link in the description. Okay, Owen Williams is here, says, how do I transition from supply chain to financial analysis without experience? Short answer, networking. Okay, now, first of all, let's assume that it's possible to do that for you, meaning that you understand the technicalities of how to work in financial analysis. You have the math, you have the knowledge of the tools, and the concepts of what you're doing, okay? Assuming that you have that, okay, what you do is you get in front of people that are decision makers that hire financial analysts, and you talk to them and they see how wonderful you are. And in order to do this, you would reach out to them, right? There's a way to do this in a sort of extroverted way where you go to events or you just knock on their office door. There's also what I would call a more introverted way of doing it, where you use tools like Google Maps and LinkedIn to reach out to these people and set up meetings and go and do an informational interview with them. And, you go down there and you ask them for their expert opinion and, the world of financial analysis and that industry and where it's going and what skills are, going to be valued in the future and blah, 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 right? And get information on it. And you do this with several people. And eventually, if you know kind of the protocol of what to say, that's a way of placing you in the running for a job. So if one of these people is looking to hire a junior financial analyst or something like that, they may take a chance on you because, you might not have experience working in financial analysis, but if you do have the prerequisite skills and abilities, like you know how to do math and you know the whole concept, and you understand how to use the software or whatever, you're the only one that showed up and talked to them, and they got a free sample of what you're like as a person, how awesome you are, how good your communication skills are, how professional you are, and how passionate you are for financial analysis. And they heard a few of the things that you've said about financial analysis, and they can tell that you're on the level and you understand what it's about and what's important. Okay, so assuming you do all that, that's how you can slide in there and get a job in it when you don't have any experience in it. A lot of people do this all the time. Networking is the number one way people get jobs. And this is one avenue of networking. So hopefully that makes sense. Incidentally, if you're wanting to know the details of how all that stuff works, that's in this course right here. I wasn't necessarily planning to talk about that, but because we're talking about side hustles, but that's all in here. How to do that type of networking on demand. Incidentally, that's also the same stuff, the same skills you would need to really excel in a lot of entrepreneurial type ventures. Because one way or another, you're going to have to be tuned in to an industry, right? Whether it's arts and crafts or financial analysis, whatever you're in business doing for yourself. Maybe you're a consultant. Maybe you sell a product. but you're going to have to be plugged into that industry. You're going to have to know the players. You're going to have to be able to get information. You're going to have to be able to forge relationships and partnerships with people. So, it's exactly the same techniques and skills you would need to put yourself forward for a job as it would be put yourself forward for some kind of business relationship or partnership. Mark Thomas sent a super chat. Thank you, Mark. Says, thank you for the stream, Bill. I'm with a new nonprofit starting a new corporation with a buddy. How can we build BOD C-suite core teams for both? Okay, you're going to have to break down some of these acronyms for me, please, Mark. BOD, if you could define that. People talk to me from all over the world, from every industry, and they all use acronyms, and I can't keep them straight in my head. So if you could just break that acronym out for me and define it, I'll be happy to help you with that. So nonprofit is, it's experienced a big growth in the past like 10, 20 years. And it's interesting because people that are in business, that they're actually, the decision makers for business, they're towards the top. Either they're people that have their own company, or they're CEOs and things, or general managers. That one way of sort of minimizing the taxes that you pay is not disclosing a huge profit, which means that if you're successful, your company makes money, but you don't just say, okay, well, this is my profit. Instead, what you can do is you take that money and you reinvest it. If you reinvest it in your own company, you essentially pay less taxes on it. So if you take it out as cash, the government will take a huge chunk of it, right? If you elect instead not to take it out, but just, we'll use that money instead to buy a new machine or something like that, then they won't take nearly as much, right? So it's a good idea. Okay, so board of directors. Now, C-suite, okay, are you talking about the C-level? Is that how you're using that? Because that is the name of a software package. So I didn't know which one you were referring to. So I'm with a new nonprofit. Well, listen, okay, one thing that I've noticed over the years is that there doesn't seem, in my experience, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for putting together a board of directors, especially if it's a nonprofit. When it's a for-profit business, usually what you want to do is you want to build a board of directors, whether it's an advisory board or it's your actual board of directors, like our owners. You want to populate it with people that obviously can help you, right? They are strategic. They can help you either with information or with relationships. Okay. So there's very strategic decisions that are made. People that are in influential positions that are generally very extrovert. They know everybody. They're connectors. They can if you're a small company, they can make sure that you get considered seriously for certain things, maybe that you wouldn't normally be considered seriously for. You wouldn't be regarded as a contender, but because they're sort of evangelizing you, you now have more credibility, right? So things like this. Sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do, there might be a direct conflict of interest. Like you've got somebody, like for example, you're a supplier and sitting on your board is like the head of your number one customer, something like that, right? So, I've seen that before. But for nonprofits, what I've seen is that it's all over the board. You get people on there that it's like, why is that person on there? Like what connection do they have to this business? And most of the time I haven't gotten an answer for that. Sometimes it's because they are just prominent. And, either the fact that person is on your board gives you automatically just that, gives you some credibility, or they can, influence things in an indirect way that, is not obvious to a lot of people. Like, for example, I've seen where you have a hospital or something, and sitting on the board of directors, you have the head of the local construction company, right? Now, that would make sense if the hospital is expanding and they're wanting to, they're putting out contracts for, for building a new wing or something like that. But no, it's, there's no construction involved. It's just to have a sort of larger presence in the community. It could be the charitable side of things where those people will donate and they'll be present at fundraisers and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, they even have people on boards that like, there's no direct relation. There's no business relationship there. Like, it'll be the board of a hospital, and then the person on there will be like someone who's the general manager of the local outlet of the number one steel manufacturer in the country or something like that, and you're wondering like, what's the connection there, So I've seen a lot of things. Basically, what I believe happens in a lot of those situations is it comes directly from the marketing department. They basically say, we would like to have more of a presence here. We're trying to push this strategic marketing initiative. And so the furthering of like, recruiting members for your board becomes like almost like an arm of the marketing department. It's strange. Now, that makes total sense if it's an advisory board. Like, they're not actual shareholders. It's just a group of people that get together and they give advice, right? But if it's your actual board, it's kind of weird having it done that way. So, that's the extent of my knowledge on it. I have never had to recruit for a board for a nonprofit. I've just observed what people do in my hometown, especially. And there's a lot of things. I'm more to do with like how to run the business as opposed to like more of the slippery, abstract marketing initiatives. Like we want to be seen more in these circles and stuff like that. Okay, Mark says, as for the nonprofit, we just need directors plus staff. Me and my friend only ones. Thanks for advising live. Yeah, listen, basically, some contenders would be, if you're just, it depends, in order to know what to do, you need to know what your goals are. Like that's where you start. So the goal for a lot of these people is to further the reach, like the awareness of the organization. So if that's your goal, okay, what I would do is I would go to the most extrovert, social butterfly, like pseudo celebrity, business people in your city or your town or wherever you are, your region. And, like you probably know the people I'm talking about. They're ones that, they go to all the different events. Their business people love to have all these, I don't know, I don't like them, but these like sort of empty kind of events where they give each other awards and they make little speeches and nobody gives a rat's ass except for themselves, right? They award each other these little things and they're the only ones that show up to all these. But it forms the core in a way of a sort of business community, right? And unfortunately, when somebody real enters the picture, someone with money that is looking to actually do a real thing, they also get in with that group. So whether that's the local chamber of commerce or it's a local sort of informal association of, local businesses, you probably know who I'm talking about. People that are always at every event, right? And, maybe they are the CEO of a company, but you never actually see them in their company. They're always out at events doing like various fancy presentations and meetings for God knows what. Those people might, I hate to say it, those people might like be good contenders because they will increase your visibility and you do get name recognition within the local region. So that may help if you're a nonprofit. And that may help put you on the map and be considered seriously for certain opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have been before. Okay? The great thing is that those people are generally very approachable. So if you want to get a meeting with them and talk to them about this and have like a lunch date or something, it's generally very easy to do. So it shouldn't be that hard to approach them and to sort of put this to them. And they'll generally want to agree because they understand the importance of visibility and all this kind of thing. As for the nonprofit, we just need directors and staff. Okay, so how would team building go? Like when you say team, are you talking about your advisory board, like your board of directors, or are you talking about like employees? Because I'm talking about the advisory board or your actual board of directors. Okay, so you're saying, so in your lexicon, corporation is the opposite of nonprofit. You're talking about for-profit corporation. Well, it's different if it's a for-profit corporation. You want to make strategic choices. So customers you want to work with, your most influential customers that you've worked with in the past, people that can sort of, evangelize about you, like people with influence is basically what you want, right? So the more credible they are, the more well-known they are, the more valuable they are in your board. And for a variety of reasons. Superficially, it gives you credibility, and more in depth, they can maybe provide more valuable advice, especially if you're looking to do something that they know about or that they've done or that they're involved with, right? So if you want to be considered for something, try and get someone on your board that is involved with that. And that's a sort of intermediate step. And then it's a lot less of a stretch for you to be considered for something. So whatever that is, I don't know what you're going for, but that's generally how these strategic decisions are made. If you don't have someone on your team that's like a real people person, that's obviously going to be very valuable for this type of activity. You would want to know, like if you're trying to court somebody, you'd want to know what they're into, what events they go to, what they place importance on. So either you could do that yourself by doing a couple of informational interviews with them, or you get someone that's like in those circles themselves, and you hire them as your sort of, public relations person that's going to be in charge of recruiting for board members. C executive, MS plus board of directors, yes, for profit, and nonprofit is a different entity. Okay. Okay, Mark. Well, hopefully that might have been somewhat helpful. Hopefully. Yeah, that's not sort of my core competency. I mean, I'm an introvert, and I don't particularly enjoy sort of schmoozing with a lot of talking heads, people that their life is going to events and being seen and connecting with people. That's their main thing that they do. Sometimes you get executives that are like that. They're just connectors, and that's what they bring to a business. They put it on the map, and they make sure everyone's heard of it, and it's well regarded, and it's now visible. But they're not really technically very competent at the other aspects of their job. I'm very much the opposite of that. So I recognize the need for these people, and I've seen some of the effects that they can have. But at the end of the day, I believe that if you offer something of value and you understand the marketing side, you know how to sell it, you know how to communicate that value to people who would care about it. At the end of the day, that's the thing that matters. And all this stuff is kind of window dressing. That said, I have helped a lot of startups build advisory boards, which is like, they're not the board of directors. They're just people that sort of come together, and it's something that they can put on their resume or profile that attests to the fact that they have influence and they're regarded as an expert in their area. But what you get out of it is you get their sort of expert opinion on what's going on in the industry and how things work and what they recommend that you do and for what reason. So that can be very useful, especially when you're small and you're starting out. So regardless of whether it's your board of directors, I would advise people to get a good advisory board together. Just approach some business leaders that are in your locally that are in your industry, and talk to them and see if they'll just sit on your board. And maybe like once a year or once every quarter or something, you meet and they just give their opinion on what you're doing. And people love giving their opinion. People find it flattering when you ask them for their expert opinion, right? They love being regarded as an expert, and they love being listened to when they have thoughts on something. So that plays to their ego, and they get something out of it, and you get something out of it. So an advisory board is definitely something that you guys should consider as part of as a separate thing or in connection with this. Okay, well, there's 14 of you guys here. Thank you for participating. Thank you to the people who asked questions. Thank you to Mark for the super chat. And I will be back in 45 minutes on this channel with my other live stream called How to Get Hired, where we talk about employment and resumes and jobs and interviews. And I will be back next week at the same time with another episode of Side Hustle Ideas for all you guys that are interested in entrepreneurship. Thank you, and I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.